Hello and welcome to Inside the Teacher Studio. My name is Tisha Bender and I am an assistant director and instructor in the Rutgers Writing Program, and I specialize in online and hybrid course teaching. Inside the Teacher Studio is a program where we interview teachers from around Rutgers University to learn more about the diverse classes offered here at Rutgers, the innovative teaching strategies used in different disciplines and class formats, and the overall process of becoming and growing as a teacher. In this episode, I had the opportunity to speak with Jenny Mandelbaum, a professor within the Communications Department in the School of Communication and Information here at Rutgers University. She teaches classes of many varieties, from undergraduate introductory classes to Burn seminars and even graduate level courses. When we spoke, she discussed how she became a teacher, the challenges of teaching large classes, strategies for keeping students focused and eager to learn, and teaching honors classes.
I was asked to be a teaching assistant. Someone offered me the opportunity to be a teaching assistant. When I started out as a grad student, I wasn't funded, and then my advisor offered me the opportunity to be a teaching assistant. And I came to appreciate two things. One was how interesting one could make teaching, that it doesn't have to be linear, it doesn't have to be information dissemination. You can use teaching as a way of changing people's minds about things, and that my advisor was a really great teacher and a really big inspiration for me. And then the other thing was that feeling of explaining things to people and the light bulb going on was very intoxicating, and I think that was something else that drew me to teaching.
So, would you like to talk a little bit about some of the classes that you're teaching now at Rutgers?
The year that I was up for tenure, I was told I would be teaching a large class, and one doesn't say no to anything the year one is up for tenure.
No,
and so,
when you say large, how many students?
At that time, that class was about 250, something like that. And my initial thought was, okay, it's a lot of people, it's going to be anonymous, I'm just going to have to tell them stuff. We can't do the kind of interactive thing that we're used to doing in a smaller classroom setting. I'm not going to learn their names. Usually, I'm very good at names. Usually I learn everybody's name. That's not going to happen. And I made pretty much every mistake that was available to make, and then some, and the class was an unmitigated disaster, and I got the lowest teaching evaluations I ever got. Right. Well, at that point I was up for tenure, so my packet was in, whatever. It wasn't going to hurt me, but it was a big blow to my pride. I then made it my business to conquer the genre, figure out how one could be successful in the large classroom, because I had two colleagues in particular in my department who were enormously successful in the large classroom. I learned some very specific things, things like when students answer a question, the rest of the class can't necessarily hear it. So you have to repeat back what they've said. And that's so obvious once you hear it. And I'm ashamed that I didn't figure it out myself the first time around. Use a microphone, because maybe they can hear you, but if they can't, there's nothing there for them. You can learn names, and you can develop a feeling of community in a large class. One of my colleagues put it very nicely. He said, teaching a large class is a combination of a high wire act and lion taming. Because on the one hand, you've got to be very entertaining, and on the other hand, you have to manage all of the kind of conduct issues that make the large class a tough place sometimes.
So what other techniques do you think you use? I mean, you've got the music, the walking around, lots of names.
One of the things I do at the very beginning of the semester that I think really helps me the whole way through the semester is to be upfront about the difficulties of taking a large class. And so I'll say to them, how many of you have had a large class before? And usually 2/3 have. How many of you have never had a large class? Usually if I teach in the fall, so I have about a third, it's 450 people, about a third of the class is freshmen. And so I say, okay, so we've got a really good resource here. We've got people who've had experience with large classes and people who are new to it. Let's use that resource to think about what are some of the challenges of taking a large class. And so I actually pop out of my PowerPoint so I can type into it, and I just take from them, they say, okay, so what are some of the challenges? Let's list them. Let's talk about what some of your strategies are, those of you who've had experience with a large class, some of your strategies for dealing with these challenges. And they have great suggestions.
Then you said you do things like you have these little video clips or clips.
Right, yes. So class is largely interactive, very little lecturing, more showing them something that connects with their experience and then developing it towards whatever theory it is I want them to learn. So there's usually some sort of a demo and then a discussion and then the theory that reveals for us. So certain things that were very helpful to me were watching the TV shows that my students watch, because I'm not a big TV watcher, but I learned that the students do watch a lot of TV, and so if you want to connect with them, you want to think about, well, what are they thinking about?
What were some TV shows you watched?
Then people were watching Seinfeld and Friends, and now they're still watching them because they're in reruns. So luckily for me, and I think it helps also to acquire some cultural insiders. And so once my kids got to be the right age, they became very useful as providing insights into what's on the mind of undergraduates.
Do you ever, I'm just curious, do you ever, knowing that sometimes students might want to talk, and you're saying that really shouldn't be happening if you're the one who's talking, obviously, do you ever give them the opportunity, maybe pose a question and have them just talk in groups or to their neighbours about
It doesn't work in the large class.
Interesting.
Yes, I used to try it. I used to do a unit on group communication, which I've stopped doing, although I may end up reintroducing it. And I would have them divide into groups, and they would either leave or just do something else. And part of it is the seats are fixed. So you've got a row of 20, 30 people.
How can they
do exactly?
Down,
you could have them sort of turn around. It's very impractical. Years ago, when WebCT was first available at Rutgers, WebCT had a function where you could automatically divide the class into groups of whatever size you wanted. So I did do a bunch of stuff with virtual groups, and then when we switched to Sakai, Sakai wasn't able to do that. I think it is able to do that now, but I haven't gone back to it. Largely because they seem to find each other in the chat room on Sakai, and that seems to work really well.
So you mentioned Sakai. Do you use Sakai much, in fact, or do the students just spontaneously go on there for chat?
They go on there for chat, and I tell them there's the chat room. You can use it to discuss things relevant to class and so on and so forth. I see them using it a lot for, do you have the notes from such and such a day? Do you have the notes from such and such a day?
Yes.
Although I have tutors who take notes, and they get extra credit if they go to the tutors to go over the notes. So I do sort of make that available to them. But I see them asking each other to email notes on there, and there have been times, depends on the class, there have been times when they'll be in the chat room during class commenting on what's going on in class.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So what makes the honours class such an incredible experience?
Well, honours students are really, really smart, but they don't have the self-editor that graduate students often have. Graduate students are always really, really smart, but they're often cautious. The undergraduates aren't cautious at all, and a lot of times, because it's an interdisciplinary honours seminar, they know they don't know anything about this subject, and so they're just willing to launch into it, and they're so intellectually gifted and serious that it's an amazing experience. I often will say this to the undergrads, don't tell your parents I said this, but it's very important that you learn while you're here, but it's also really important that you make a lot of friends and do a lot of things that you can only do at university. Do the intramurals, be in a drama production, join that club, because this is the only time you're going to be with this large of a group of like-minded individuals who are at the same stage of life as you are. It's not going to happen again.
Now we begin the quickfire part of the program, where professors answer a fun questionnaire. Professors respond with the first thing that comes to mind, letting us learn a little more about the person and his or her approach to teaching. So what is your favorite discipline-specific term?
That term, projectability.
What is your least favorite discipline-specific?
Okay, that's easy. Information.
What is the most exciting about the start of a new semester?
The opportunity to connect with a new group of people and with new individuals.
What do you love to see in the classroom?
Oh, those light bulbs going off.
And what do you actually hate to see in the classroom?
People asleep.
Yes. What is your favorite excuse for lateness from a student?
I had a great one a few years ago where a student said, I'm really sorry that I don't have my assignment, but my mom was bitten by a dog. And so, of course, the thought that popped into my mouth was, not the dog ate my homework, the dog ate my mother.
If you could study any other discipline other than your own, what might that be?
I could see being very interested in being an anthropologist.
And what discipline would you not want to ever study?
I'd love to be able to study math, but I don't have the right kind of brain for it, so that probably wouldn't be top of my to-do list.
I see.
Yeah.
I empathise with you there. And one last question. If you could attend a master class taught by anyone, whose class would you like to attend?
Well, it wouldn't work because this person passed away in 1975, but there's a man called Harvey Sachs, who's the founder of the field that I work in, and by all accounts he was an incredibly inspiring thinker.
Wow, I think that's it.
Okay, very good.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sure.